What happened when your daddy issues actually led you to your daddy? Every piercing I got, every tattoo that made my mother cringe, every older man I brought home at 19 was really about the ghost who left before I was born. That's how I ended up at this upscale bar downtown. The same place my friend and I used to sneak into with our fakes at 19. Dizzy with the power of making men with watches the price of my college tuition forget about their wives. So when David bought me a drink that night, I assumed he was just another older man with money to burn. But something about him felt different. For 4 months, we existed in our own private world of expensive dinners ordered to his downtown apartment, both of us avoiding the reality check that would come with going public. He didn't want the judgment about dating someone young enough to be his daughter, and I didn't want another lecture from my mother about my taste in older men. But eventually the secrecy started feeling less like privacy and more like shame. He'd finally started taking me out, but he'd still scan every restaurant before we sat down, or suggest we leave separately if he spotted someone he knew. When I pushed him about it, he blamed the age gap, said people would make assumptions, but I'd begun to wonder if those people included a wife who thought he was at a conference every time he was with me. The only thing that didn't fit the cheating husband theory was how available he always was. No sudden cancellations, no phone calls he had to take privately, no holidays or weekends where he mysteriously disappeared, just constant presence that felt too complete for someone with another life. So that night at his apartment, I decided I was done with the mystery. Wine glasses between us and city lights stretching below, I told him I wasn't going to be anyone's side piece, that either we go somewhere properly public or I walk away. And after a long pause where he studied my face like he was doing math, he sighed and agreed to Francesco's, making some crack about my paranoia while his fingers drummed against the table. Francesco's was the restaurant I'd been begging to try for months, the kind of place with month-long waits where everyone went to be seen. It should have felt like a victory after months of hiding. But David seemed nervous from the moment we walked in, his eyes sweeping the crowded dining room like he expected trouble. As we followed the hostess through the packed dining room, I spotted my mother at a table across the room, and my first thought was to introduce them finally, to end all the secrecy in one bold move. But then I saw David's face collapse from handsome to haunted in less than a second. We were still following the hostess when David suddenly stopped, his whole body going rigid. He looked at my mother's table, then at me, then turned and ran, literally ran, dodging waiters and tables like he was fleeing a crime scene. My mother reached me before I could even process what happened, her face twisted with horror. "What are you doing with your father?" The restaurant tilted sideways, voices became static, and the last thing I remember is my knees hitting the floor. I came to in her car, and that's when she finally broke 25 years of silence. David hadn't just abandoned us when she got pregnant, he'd threatened to unalive her if she didn't abort me, had already broken her wrist twice, had drained their bank account 3 times for his gambling debts. She'd fled to another continent when I was still just cells dividing inside her, changed her name, rebuilt everything to protect us from him, and suddenly his weird behavior made sense because some part of him must have recognized something familiar in me without knowing why. The same way I'd been drawn to him without understanding the pull. What destroyed me most wasn't just the 4 months in his bed, but what my mother revealed the next morning after neither of us had slept. My brother had always known more about our father because I'd refused to listen. While I was throwing tantrums about not wanting to hear about him, my brother had seen pictures, knew his name, knew the whole story. My therapist's joke about daddy issues wasn't funny anymore because I was literally living it. Every older man I'd dated had been practiced for this moment, and the way he'd called me baby girl in bed made me throw up for the 3rd time that day. As my family fell apart in slow motion, more pieces clicked into place. My mother admitted she'd seen David around the city 3 months ago, but hadn't told anyone, hoping he'd just leave again like before. My brother confessed he'd worried about my secret older boyfriend, but never imagined this nightmare. After 3 weeks of David's silence, I finally deleted his number but kept the text that said, "I love you," because I needed proof this had actually happened. We filed restraining orders, started family therapy, and pretended Francesco's never happened, but every night I dreamed about him calling me baby girl and woke up sick. The therapist asked if I wanted to process the trauma, but how do you process accidentally screwing your father for 4 months and still missing him? Some girls cut themselves to feel something, but I'd been cutting myself with older men my whole life, and it turned out my father was the sharpest blade of all.